Tonight we're going to finish off the class with editing, which some filmmakers feel that's where the real film is made. The production is just to get the footage, the parts of the story, so the editor can actually create the story. Most of the best directors, this is my opinion, are good editors. Most of the best directors have that story cut in their head before they even step onto the set and yell action. But I think the more you research it, the more you find that the greatest directors are usually really good editors, or at least have that innate knowledge of how to tell a story visually. So let's get into the editing, pieces of the puzzle. They call editing the invisible art. Film editing is the process of selecting shots, joining scenes, connecting the resulting sequences, and ultimately creating a finished motion picture, right? So you start small with the framing and each individual shot, and you join those shots together and you get a scene, and then you join those scenes together to get a sequence, and ultimately you join all those sequences together and you have your entire film right there. It is the only art form that is unique to cinema, separating filmmaking from other art forms that preceded it, right? There aren't any. Now, you can photo edit, yes. And you can write a speech and edit that, and there's, you can consider using the word edit in just about any art form, but the art form of editing visual sequences together, it's unique to the filmmaking process. Film editing is often referred to as invisible art. That's the title of this slide, because when it is well practiced, or done really well, the viewer becomes so engaged that he or she is not even aware of the editor's work. Thus the term invisible art. You shouldn't notice editing, unless you're an editor or a filmmaker or someone who loves to watch editing. You shouldn't notice it when you're watching a film, when you're engrossed in the story and the characters and the action and the romance, everything is going. You shouldn't notice the editing. You should feel the editing. The editing will make you feel a certain way, just like all the other art forms that we've talked about in this class. All the art departments. The arts that we talked about in this class to drive the story forward, to get you to emotionally invest in the story, in the film.
The theoretician Lev Kuleshov also experimented with film editing. In his most famous study, he took a shot of a Russian actor and intercut it with 3 different objects: a bowl of hot soup, a distraught woman draped across her husband's coffin, and a little girl playing with a teddy bear. When audiences saw the film, they raved about the actor's performance. How hungrily he looked at the soup. How sorrowfully he gazed at the woman. And how tenderly he watched the little girl.
But actually, it was the same expression each time. Now, this demonstrates the power of juxtaposition, the power of montage, by taking one shot and another shot to give it a third meaning. And the third meaning is an effect, an emotion that's much greater than the sum total of the 2 parts that put it together in the first place. And this is the basis of all editing, by the way.
Okay, so that recreation and the clip we just saw of shooting a person with the same shot, all right, just one shot of a person with a certain reaction, actually no reaction at all. And then you intercut that same shot with, they had a bowl of soup, and they had a child holding a doll, and then they had a coffin. And when you intercut that same shot with those separate shots, the viewer will swear that is the best actor. He's acting. He's reacting to that bowl of soup and looks hungry. Just like, I'm not going to read. But that was a very famous editing exercise. It's like editing 101 you learn in film school when you're learning how to edit. That the technique of editing, of intercutting shots and putting one next to another or one after the other, is the art form of storytelling. Using individual shots. So interesting clip. So filmmakers like to be uninterrupted storytellers, right? Anything that breaks that ruins it, because now they have to get you reinvested. All right. Now this was, back in the days before kids would sit there on their phones watching a movie and they say, no, I'm really paying attention. I'm paying attention. Really, no. Yeah, my kids do that too, and it's horrible. I don't know why they do it. But so filmmakers don't like to be interrupted. Don't do anything to break the concentration of the viewer from that story. And editing helps that. Editing is what keeps you interested in that story, all right? It removes all the distractions, the mechanics of that filmmaking process. So you're not sitting there going, wait a minute, that person was just in a car a second ago and now they're sitting in their home? Well, wait a minute. Editing, good editing, you don't even see that. You just know that, okay, the sequence before, they were in a car, now they're at home. So obviously they drove home, they got out of the car, they locked the door, they walked up the stairs, they walked in, and now they're in this home, right? All that's boring. We don't need all that. All we need is what they said in the car, and now they're at home. So good editing helps that process, all right? Doesn't interrupt the viewer. Removes all the distractions of where they were in the car and now they're in the home. It removes all that. Good editing does that. It keeps the audience in the moment. All right, that's basically what I'm trying to say. Should have just hit the forward button. And continues the illusion of reality or creates a new reality. All right, because film stories, nothing up there is real. We know that going in, right? Because we're sitting there and someone is projecting it, or Netflix is projecting it. And we know that's not real, what's happening up there. At least, those of us who aren't psychotic know that it's not real. But we know that it's creating an illusion of reality, all right? And we want to be in that reality. And once we're in that reality, we want to stay in that reality until the movie's done and the credits are rolling. So good editing does all those. It keeps the audience in the moment and continues that illusion of reality. Don't interrupt me. Watching a movie.
What makes a movie is the editing.
I've been in the business for, 37 years, I think, something like that. And I did not really realize what editing was until I was in the editing room myself.
There's magic to editing. Magic is a discovery of something new that wasn't intended, that works for the movie.
Once you start to realize that film is the sum of editing, then editing is the thing you're always looking at.
Showtime, folks.
I think great editing skill will protect a director from suicide.
The first filmmakers simply photographed what interested or amused them. They held a shot until they got bored. or the film ran out.
The fathers of cinema, Edison in the United States and the Lumiere brothers in France, were very pessimistic about the future of cinema. There was probably a worldwide interest in seeing these images move, but once you'd seen somebody playing a joke with a hose, why pay money to see something that you can see for real out in the street? In fact, Auguste Lumiere went as far as to say that cinema was an invention without a future.
But Edwin Porter, one of Thomas Edison's employees, proved him wrong. Porter discovered that cutting separate shots together could create a story.
Edwin S. Porter really was the one with the Life of an American Fireman, I think, that started intercutting and creating an emotional impact in the audience by intercutting two shots that are not related to each other. One scene is going on at one place, basically the firemen rushing to a fire with their horse-drawn wagons, and the other scene is the fire, miles away. You intercut the two, and you understand psychologically and emotionally that these people's lives are in danger, and these people are coming to rescue them, and you're rooting all of a sudden for that to happen, and you're hoping they save the people. I often think about what it must have been like to be there to create the art form as it was happening, and say, why don't we try this? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, we do it in the editing room now. We cut to something and say, well, that doesn't work. Well, imagine what they must have said in 1904.
The Great Train Robbery was Porter's next film. That's when you really begin to see the possibilities. And I'm not saying this because I'm an editor, but the invention of editing is the thing that allowed film to take off. It's the equivalent of the invention of flight. Both human-powered flight and motion picture editing were invented in the same year, and they have similar kinds of effects.
The invention of editing gave birth to a new art and a new language. A language that can transport us in the blink of an eye from the vastness of the desert to the mysteries of the human face. A cut can bridge millions of years, connecting the prehistoric past to an imaginary future. Editing can slow down time or speed it up. The timing of a cut can startle audiences.
I'm cleaning out a crooked laundry, see? Little do
Or
I know
amuse
it, but
them.
There's a dope fiend with a long knife trailing after me. I'm in great danger.
I'll never let go. I promise.
The choice and length of shots shape our response to everything we see on the screen.
And editing is why people like movies, because in the end, wouldn't we like to edit our own lives? I think we would. I think everybody would like to take out the bad parts, take out the slow parts, and look deeper into the good parts.
So, the editor. What does an editor do? An editor edits, right? On the most fundamental level, a film editor is the artist who uses technique and practice in assembling shots into a coherent whole. To assembling shots, that's a typo. To assemble shots into a coherent whole, all right? That's basically what an editor does. Decision maker. Storyteller. Film editor creatively works with the layers of images, stories, dialogue, music, pacing, all the things that we've talked about in this course so far, as well as the actors' performances, to effectively redirect and even rewrite the film. Sometimes an editor can go in and take your footage and change the story. So the editor and the director have to be pretty much in sync about what story that they're both trying to tell. Editors usually play an active and dynamic role in the making of the film. Not always active, meaning that they're not necessarily on the set every day watching things get done. In fact, we're going to meet Walter Murch, who pretty much says, no, I don't visit the set when I'm an editor on a show, because I don't want to see the actors in their real person. I don't want to know that they're real people. I want to be on that, in that show, in that reality that that the director is creating and I will be putting together. I don't care about anything else. I don't care if it was raining that day and you're only able to get one shot. nothing to do with me. All it has to do with me as an editor is what you've shot and what I have to work with. And that is the active role that the editor plays. Let's talk about the tools that an editor uses. Going back to the history now, that big monstrosity is an upright, a moviola is what it's called, where you would have, there's 3 reels there. Usually you have 2 reels of film running through, and that long thing coming out, that's the viewer. And it's not digital, it's not a monitor of anything, it's actually like a projection screen. And then you'll have a track of audio running. So you can intercut, if you're cutting a sequence where there's like a wide shot and a close up, you can put both reels up there and see, and then cut, sync them up and then cut between the 2. When I say cutting, I mean cutting. That is a splicer. That's called a Riva splicer. On the left, that little black thing down there with the spools, where you would actually take your film, the celluloid film, and put it on that splicer and then line it up with the sprocket holes to the point where you want to cut it. And that silver thing, that's an arm with a razor blade on it. And when you get the film exactly where you want it to cut it, you would actually bring that razor blade down and it would cut the film. I mean, literally cut the film. And now you have a film that ends right here, and you got to get another piece of film where you want to cut. Like, let's say this is, you know, someone saying, a boy saying I love you, and then we want to cut to the girl saying I love you back. You find her footage that was probably shot 3 days later. You find the point where she's saying I love you back. You cut it and you put it together. You put them on that splicer thing, and that little silver roll on the left, they usually have a roll of clear tape on it. You put a little tape there, you cut it, and you've just cut together a boy saying I love you and a girl saying I love you back. And you've just edited that sequence together. Olden days. Again, a different type of splicer. This one used a little bit of glue, actual cement that you would actually paint on there with a little paintbrush. That big monstrosity on the left is called an upright. You see it has platters, these round platters, and you put rolls of film on them, and the top one would be a roll of sound, magnetic soundtrack. And you would sync them up, so all the footage of the boy would be on the bottom, the girl would be on top, and then the sound that was recorded, either of the boy, the girl, or maybe it was a 2-shot together, you put that on top, and then you can roll them back and forth, right, using a little wheel. There's those things are all motorized, and once they're sunk up, you could cut a sequence together. That thing in the middle, that's a monitor. That is not a monitor like a computer monitor, it's a projector, because basically there's a little light bulb in there that's projecting onto the film, and it projects it up into that box, and then those big black things are the speakers. So that's called a flatbed editor. It replaced those uprights editors right about, I don't know when these things came in, about the late 60s, early 70s. Of course, today we're digital. We edit everything on a computer using software, hardware that could store, you know, massive amount of footage and sound effects, and the software which runs on the computer and basically zeros and ones, turns your footage into zeros and ones, and then translates it into moving pictures that you can edit. You can edit on, you know, I don't know if you get on Chrome, but yeah, I mean, you could. YouTube has an editor. There's so many free editors out there. You don't even need a computer anymore. You can edit on your tablet or your phone, as many of you probably do. TikTok, oh my God. First duty of an editor. Well, okay, let's go back real quick to, do I need a college degree? No, this is another position in the film industry where you don't get a job as an editor because you got a degree in editing, which you would really don't get a degree in editing. You work your way up, right? You start editing small shows, or you start as an assistant editor, and you log footage, and you run errands, and then you start working your way up as an editor. Or you get on a show and start cutting videos, your YouTube videos, and get them on YouTube and get noticed, and people say, wow, you really know how to tell a story visually using an editor, and work your way up. So no college degree required for anything in this editorial. Now, again, getting a college degree, getting a well-rounded education, learning about humanities and art and music and dance and all the humanities will help you as an editor. because you'll be able to make decisions. It's like, wow, that story reminds me of Aesop's Fables, or reminds me of Herodotus, or reminds me of the film that I saw in films, some Martin Scorsese obscure student film that he made. And so these are things you get exposed to, not necessarily at school, but in life as well. So college degree are not required. Well-rounded education, which may include traveling the world, living life, working jobs, working on a cruise ship. Well, don't want to do that right now. Cough, cough. But well-rounded education will help you. College degree, not necessary. So the duties of an editor are understanding material, of course, knowing the script inside and out, knowing the subtext, having gone over the script with your director, so you can kind of get an idea of a really good idea what the director's vision is. You don't want to get into the show and say, oh, I thought we were making a comedy. I was cutting it to be a comedy. No, you have to understand the director's vision, and that should be plastered on your head, in your brain. Know your footage, your coverage, which includes logging on your footage, seeing everything that was shot for a particular scene, every angle, every take, knowing it very well. So when you're making the decisions about how to put a scene together, wide shot, close up, medium shot, you know your footage, obviously. And when I say logging, that's one of the jobs an assistant or second assistant editor would do. You would take the footage and you would log it, saying this was a man, wide shot, good take. Man, wide shot, take 2. Man, wide shot, take 3, best take. A woman, wide shot, woman call. Yeah, it's tedious because you're just watching and logging, but it's an important job to log it well, so your editor can come in and know exactly what they have to work with when they're putting the scene together, and clicks it along a lot faster. First, they will do an assemble edit. A lot of times, the assistant editor will do this. Well, they will just take the scenes that were shot and put the shots together without any major cutting. They may cut on action, whatever, but just basically to see how the scene is playing out. Then they start fine-tuning it, cutting out frames here, frames there, maybe changing the angle, maybe looking at a different angle. That's called the rough cut. Finally, they go down to the fine cut, where it's getting pretty much to be what they want for the story. And then the sound editors take over from there. The cut goes to the effects team, the cut goes to the composer, all the other people that are involved in post-production and making the show get it from then, get the fine cut. But the first duty of every editor is to understand that the director's vision and that every frame counts, right? In the olden days where you actually had celluloid, plastic film, if you cut one frame off, you think, it's just trash, and it just ended up on the floor. But you may go on later and find out, oh my goodness, that frame was where he blinked, and that blink is the most important thing for this sequence. You need to find that frame again, so then you got to go dig through all your, those days are over. It's all digital now. As long as your footage is backed up, you're fine. However, every frame does count when you are telling a story.
A major Hollywood production shoots almost 200 hours of film. Unspooled, the film would stretch from LA to Vegas. An editor may work for months, even years, crafting this footage into a 2-hour movie. The finished film will contain thousands of shots, each measured in frames of 1/24th of a second.
For a writer, it's a word. All right, for a composer or a musician, it's a note. All right, for an editor and a filmmaker, it's the frames. All right, and the 1 frame off or 2 frames added or 2 frames less is the difference between a sour note and a sweet note. It's the difference between clunky, clumsy crap, all right, and orgasmic rhythm.
Verna Fields made many good contributions to Jaws. We all refer to Verna Fields as Mother Cutter because she was very earthy and very maternal. She cut her films at her house, in her pool house in the San Fernando Valley, and it was a very Hamish kind of workplace. The shark didn't work as well or as often as it was supposed to work according to the screenplay.
That's the spot.
We had a contest where Verna would stop the moviola on a frame where she wanted to make the cut, and I would stop it where I wanted to make the cut. And if ever we stopped it on the same frame that had already been marked with a grease pencil X, we knew that was the right frame on certain things where we didn't agree. And all of our disagreements always happen with that darn shark. Verna was always in favor of making less to be more. And I was trying to squeeze that one more, because it took me days to get the one shot. So I'm going back to, I'm on a barge for 2 days trying to get the shark to look real. And the sad fact was the shark would only look real in 36 frames, not 38 frames. And that 2-frame difference was the difference between something really scary and something that looked like a great white floating turd.
Out of my way.
Well, I got so desperate on Terminator 2, trying to shorten that film to a manageable length, as we all understand that to be, that I said, well, wait a minute, do we really need all these frames? If we just took out 1 frame every second for the entire film, we'd shorten the film by a couple of minutes. Let's just do it as a test. We'll take a reel, and we'll take out 1 frame in every 24. And the editors looked at me like I was nuts. Let's just try it. Come on, nobody's ever done this. We took out 1 frame in every 24, and it was a mess. There were jerks, there were things, there were cuts in the wrong places. You totally saw it, and it just didn't work. Every one of those individual frames was important. Once you know that as an editor, now you get scared for a while. It's like, geez, am I cutting here or am I cutting here? But then after a while, you start to realize that there's great power in that, too.
Pretty neat in that little clip where you got to see Tarantino, we got to see Spielberg, and James Cameron talking about editing process, where James Cameron, the exercise where he took out 1 frame every minute to see what would happen and how choppy it was. You saw in Steven Spielberg when he was editing Jaws, Verna Fields was his editor, and the machine she was using was an upright, a moviola. And that he talked about grabbing that handle and pushing it down. That was a clutch stop, where you can get right to the frame you want and stop it, and that's where you mark it, and that's where you know you're going to cut it. Pretty neat sequence.
I started working on what used to be called the upright moviola, which is a editing machine that looks something like a green sewing machine on legs. I switched to computer editing in the mid-90s. The editor has to be, he's sort of the ombudsman for the audience. As an editor, you only see what is on the screen, not what was going on at the time of shooting. And that's how it's going to look to the audience. I make it a principle not to go on the set, not to see the actors out of costume, not to see anything other than the images that come to me from location.
So that was a sequence with film editor Walter Murch. 2 things I thought were interesting. Well, he talks about not wanting to visit the set because he doesn't want to be unduly influenced by anything that goes on the set, right? He wants to live in the setting of the film when he's editing the film. Second thing, you saw his editing workshop office there. And you see all the storyboards on the wall. So he would put the storyboards up for the scene he was editing. And so it gives him a really good idea of what the director's vision was for the scene. And he can look at the storyboards and say, okay, here, he wants this speech to be covered in a close-up, or that's how he envisioned it in his head, and how the storyboards came out. So it gives the editor a lot more information as far as what the director was wanting. So again, those storyboards that we talked about at the very beginning of the semester, there they are again, showing up at the very end when the editing is being, the cut is being made. Walter Murch, great director, great editor. There's 6 main criteria for evaluating and deciding where to cut. I got from his website. He has his own website. So, emotion, does the cut reflect what the editor believes the audience should be feeling at the moment? Right? If the editor believes that the audience should be involved in this chase scene and not just sitting there looking at their watch or looking at their phone or be bored with it, then that cut needs to be a quicker cutting to keep the audience involved, to keep the audience emotion invested keep the audience invested in the emotional impact of that scene. Number 2, story. Does the cut advance the story? Just like every other thing that we've talked about in this course, if it doesn't push the story forward, if it doesn't advance the story, if it holds it up, if it slows it down, even backs it up, it's like, oh wow, that's a whole new character you're introducing, it doesn't belong, right? Everything in the filmmaking process must push the story forward, must get the audience to the end. If it doesn't do that, if it kind of backtracks a bit, cut it out. Rhythm. Does the cut occur at a moment that is rhythmically interesting and right? All right. Not all of us have rhythm. I can't dance to save my life, but I think I'm a pretty good editor in that I could feel the timing of the cut of the scene. There was an old adage in film school where you always cut on the 7s. So a scene should never be 7 minutes long. A shot should never be more than 7 seconds. Now that's the old wives' tale. You know, films are done differently than that. But pretty much the human attention span falls right into that category. Now with the internet and music videos being what they are, I think this generation, your attention span, you guys can see things a lot faster than my attention span, right? I play Super Mario Kart and I fall asleep because the motion of the cars going through, it kind of lulls me to sleep. Because the rhythm of it puts me to sleep. So Walter Murch says, does the cut occur at a right moment, rhythmically? And I think that's something that comes with practice. Eye trace. This is an interesting thing, eye trace. When you're watching a film, a good editor will see where your eye was, where the viewer's eye is supposed to be, it's supposed to be in a frame, okay? So let's say this is a person who is screaming, all right, in this part of the frame. Now the next cut he makes, he wants to cut it so the viewer's eye doesn't have to move from this part of the frame very much. It should be like right here, it should be in this area. But if the next shot that he cuts to, the viewer's eye has to come all the way up here, all the way down here, or it has to travel far away, it's hard for the viewer, especially because you have to imagine the viewers are watching on this big monitor. So it's called the eye trace. You look at a shot, you say, where's the viewer's eye in this shot? Right there. So the next shot, I want to make sure that the viewer's eye doesn't have to stray too far from that area. And that's eye trace. All right, two-dimensional plane of screen. Does the cut respect the 180-degree rule? 180-degree rule is one of those rules of filmmaking that every filmmaker learns. It's one of those rules where you respect the 180-degree rule, meaning you only shoot everything from one side of the 180-degree line that's drawn from the two characters' eyes. Otherwise, it's hard for the editor to cut the sequence together so it doesn't confuse the audience. And I just confused you too. But there's a two-dimensional plane of screen. If you want to investigate it more, you should just type in 180-degree rule and you'll see examples of it. Three-dimensional space of action. Is the cut true to the physical spatial relationship within the plot? Is everything making sense within that scene? Now, of course, experimental films or action films, you can cut outside of that three-dimensional space. But basically, it should take place within the X, Y, and Z axis of what the audience is viewing. Otherwise, the audience is going to get lost. Great rule, Murch's 6 main criteria for evaluating a cut. All right, so this brings us to our editor's basic toolkit. We're going to look at the examples of these types of cuts. The match cut for continuity, the jump cut for non-sequential continuity, fast cutting, energy and emotion, long takes, the fluid master, already talked about that, and coverage. So the first is a match cut. Match cut is an editing cut that continues space and time. It doesn't jump out of space and it doesn't jump out of a time sequence. And basically it helps to establish a realism in the scene. All right, cutting on action or repeated motion between shots. This is a great little sequence, Steven Spielberg, E.T. Really simple sequence, all right? It's just mom takes kid's temperature. He wants to stay home to take care of E.T. Uses the lamp to bring the camera back to him. But you see how natural the cut was? We don't even know. We can't even tell that maybe this shot was shot on a different day than this shot, right? It's all continuous. It's all flows nicely. This shot may have been shot like 3 weeks later, but you see how he edited it together? Let's look through it one more time, slowly. All right, there's a couple of things really great in the sequence. First, the lighting is just gorgeous. Anyway, we'll get back to that. All right, so we cut on the motion, right? This is a cut, right? This, like I said, this shot may have been shot days later or hours before this shot. But the continuity of, well, the DP knows what he's doing, the lighting person knows that, everyone knows what they're doing. So when he cuts from this shot to this shot, you don't even see it. It's just seamless, all right? Then, this is called a motivated edit. When mom gets up and walks to the door, takes the camera with, right? Otherwise, there's no reason for the camera to go to the door, but we're going to the door for the mom. Now, how do we get back to the kid? He grabs the lamp, pulls us back with the camera, and did you see that cut? Didn't see that cut. It was so quick. Cut to him putting the warming blanket, electric blanket over his face to give him a fever, putting the thermometer up at the lamp so it increases, so it looks like he has a fever. And we cut again. And how do we get back to mom coming into the door? He uses the lamp and pushes it away and takes us with her as she goes to the closet. And this cut too. She cuts on the motion. He cuts on the motion. Opens the door. Look, it's a little bit open. And still moving. Boom. Right there. All right, watch it one more time now that you know what to look for. Seamless. You don't even notice it. He's telling a story, he's manipulating you, and you don't even know it. You're just following the story and following the action, space-time continuity. It's all happening within this one sequence. You don't know that it was shot out of sequence. You don't care because all the departments come together. They know what they're doing, so you can deliver this footage and cut it together, and you don't even see the frame, the differences. Another match cut sequence. This is a running sequence, right? Hard to shoot these because the background's constantly changing. But here he is running through the store. Camera's traveling with him. Getting shot at. All these things are happening, but the cuts are seamless. We don't even care that this sequence, his close-ups, were shot a different day or a different time. This is from the Coen brothers, one of their second film, I think it was, called Raising Arizona. Mr. Nicolas Cage there. It's very funny, very well cut sequence. And again, all those cuts matched. If you want to go back and look at it again, see where the eye tracing is, see where your eye was in one shot, and then it doesn't jump very far to the next shot, and the next shot after it doesn't jump, all right? All those elements that Walter Murch talked about work in this match cut scene. All those elements that Walter Murch talked about worked in this match cut scene. All right, so that's match cut. Keep you in the space. Don't distract you. Keep you in the story. Keep you with the characters. No distractions. Now, opposite of that is called a jump cut. Jump cuts separate the shot. Same angle. It's the same angle, same shot, but you're jumping out of it. You're creating this jump in time-space continuity. All right? It draws attention to the constructed nature of the film. You know when you're watching a sequence that's jump cutty that you're watching a film, right? It's not one long continuous take. It draws attention to the constructed nature of the film. It removes the audience from the suspended state of disbelief because this is the same angle. Why is it jumping? Why is it going back and forth from him rubbing his head to, see, there's jump. So it takes the audience out of the suspended disbelief that they're, and it reminds them they're watching a film, right? They're not watching a guy sit there in a chair. They're watching a film. Someone consciously made the decision to jump cut him. And there's even a shot where he's like not even in the scene. Some filmmakers consider it a violation of classic continuity editing, but it can be used very effectively for dramatic effect. And basically every vlogger in the world uses jump cuts, right? They set up the camera and they do their vlog, and no one wants to watch them rant on for 15 minutes. So they cut out, they jump cut to just the interesting parts. So we're very accepting of the jump cut nowadays. But in film school and classic editing training, jump cuts were only reserved for sequences where you wanted to throw the audience off balance. You wanted to get them out of the comfortness of the scene that they were watching, and make them think twice about what it is they're watching. So the jump cut. So our next sequence is our next editing style technique. It's called fast cutting or montage, from the French word assembly, I believe it is. Basically, you're taking multiple consecutive shots and you're cutting them together to compress time. Here's a great montage from The Man from Snowy River. So each shot has a very brief duration, but you're conveying tons of information in a short time frame. You're compressing time. Implies kinetic energy, heightened emotions, chaos even. So for this sequence, the cowboys are getting ready to go somewhere on a cattle drive maybe. So this is all the chaotic movement that happens before the cattle drive of them getting ready. This would probably takes, an hour for cowboys to get ready to go. I don't know, I'm not a cowboy. But using the montage, we're able to coalesce it into a short, less than minute sequence of cowboys getting ready, putting their horses together, saddling up and moving out. Yeehaw. And these are Australian cowboys. So that's a great montage. And montages are used in just about every storytelling medium you can think of. Most movies have more than one montage. There's the love sequence montage where two people have to fall in love, and it takes forever for two people to fall in love. But in a montage, you could have them fall in love in 1 minute, right? They go on a first date, they go on a second date, then there's something happens, and she buys him flowers, and he buys her, and then by the end of the montage, it's only been 30 seconds, and they're deeply in love. All right, montages are for everything. But the sports training montage, right? Right? You need to. I think South Park does a really good. I think the song is actually called "You're Gonna Need a Mont." Yeah, where one of Kyle has to learn how to ski really fastly, really quickly. So they do a montage and actually play a song. But anyway, montages are used a lot. You can't not get away from them, and it's a very effective editing technique that every filmmaker would know. Okay, our next one are these long takes of the Fluid Master. Now, editors have no control over these when they happen. They either are done very well or they're not done very well. When we were looking at cinematography, we looked at the one that was done very well. I don't know how many times I had to do that, but basically for an editor, it's easy. All they got to do is pick the best one, and usually it'll be the last one. The Fluid Master, the long take, are uninterrupted shots used for dramatic or narrative effect, convey an entire scene or scenes in one extended take. Usually involves like a dolly, a crane, or Steadicam, or some sort of smooth cam movement. Characterized by a high degree of difficulty and filmmaking skill. Yes, this is another interesting little Fluid Master here.
Damn! I am pushing the right button.
You're not pushing the right
I'm
button.
pushing the right button. Every take, I'm pushing the right button.
Where's that Batman? Show him how to do it.
All right. I don't know. Maybe it's
What do you want to
done.
do, Harry?
I'll get it fixed. Sorry.
Wrap. It's a wrap. Come back tomorrow. Harry, fuck.
Harry, what are you doing? You should have gone into overtime to get that shot. This is only the second day. We're already 2 weeks behind. And do me a favor, all right, Harry? Make sure the
Here's
actors
what I
come
don't
up
understand.
around.
Martin already told me that he loves it.
Look, buddy, I just don't think that Martin is right, okay?
Why the hell not?
Because he's too short. Come on. Why does he keep pushing Martin Weir?
Packaging.
Yeah, but that's not right. You can't make a Martin Weir into a Mel Gibson. Come on.
I don't know.
Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Morton's or
Okay, so that was Get Shorty, and it's the last sequence in the film. It's a film about the movie industry, so it stands to reason that they would attempt to do a long fluid master at the very end of the film, showing off, right? Because those are hard to do, right? Remember, if one person messes up, takes over, they have to redo it. Another editing technique is coverage. I think we talked about coverage already, but let's go through these. Well, we have your establishing shots. Basically, ultra-wide shots that establishes where this scene is going to take place. So if we were doing, the wide shot, which is usually head to toe of a talent, of an actor, or, virtual talent actors. We have medium shots, which are usually from the waist up. Medium shots could be, 1 or 2 shots. We have close-ups, which is usually just the face, and then we have our extreme close-ups and our insert shots. Extreme close-ups are just piece of a face, and then our insert is just what maybe a POV, a point of view shot of what a character is seeing, or what they're seeing, or what they're not seeing. Or a phone ringing on a desk that no one sees. So that's what an insert shot would be. There you go, magnifying glass looking through a magnifying glass. All right, so another you see a lot in TV, because a lot of times TV has multiple cameras, and so you could set this up easily. You have 2 actors talking to each other, and you set up what's called an OTS, an over-the-shoulder shot. So we're looking over the shoulder of one to another. On the reverse, another. Very easy to cut together, because usually they're doing the same take and they're reacting. The back of someone's head is acting just as important as the front. It's over the shoulder. And of course the POV shots are used to effect very well done this one sequence. But basically it's what the character is seeing from their point of view. All right, here we are. Some final notes. This, like I said earlier, this is our last lecture. Be sure to check out the quiz for this lecture before 10 p.m. tonight, because the lecture and the quiz, the video, will go away at 10. I'm going to post the final for this class this Friday, probably first thing in the morning, and your final will be due next week, Thursday, May 7th at midnight. I believe that's the last day of the semester, so I'm going to give you, I was going to give you till Tuesday, but I'm going to give you a couple extra days to finish your final and get it turned in. Also, don't forget, your chapter quizzes are due May 7th at midnight, as are any extra credit movie text due at the same time. So basically, everything's going to be due May 7th. If I were you, I would, try to get those things done soon. Good night.